One USB flash drive. Inside it, 847 pages of documents. And what these documents reveal shatters a truth everyone thought they had known for the past 10 years. Because there are offshore accounts, there are shell companies, there are fictitious transfers. But that's not the real bomb. The real bomb is who transferred the money. The account holders are politicians, but the ones making the transfers are their biggest rivals. And right now, federal investigators are trying to answer one question. Why would a politician send money to their opponent's offshore account? Is it a trap, a collaboration, or part of a completely different game? The answer shows that the system is far darker than you think. At this moment, that USB flash drive is sitting in a secure facility in Washington, D.C., and the data inside it exposes the offshore accounts of 7 members of Congress, 2 senators, and 1 former cabinet official. But that's not the most dangerous part. The most dangerous part is that all of these transfers were made in the same year, the same month, and some of them on the exact same day. If you find this analysis useful, don't forget to like and subscribe. It costs nothing, but it's a huge support. And this story is growing by the hour. This is the story of data collected by a whistleblower over 3 years. The story of how that data came to light. And most importantly, the story of the system those documents reveal. To understand this story, we first need to understand the person who created that USB drive. Because this person didn't stumble upon this information by accident, he collected it systematically. His name is Daniel Fischer, a former digital forensics specialist. For 12 years, he worked at a private law firm. We can't name the firm here, but it was big. The kind that consults Fortune 500 companies. Daniel's job was simple. Clean clients' digital footprints. Recover deleted emails. Prevent data leaks. Technically, it was all legal work. But Daniel started to notice something. Some of the work he was doing for certain clients wasn't normal. October 2019. Daniel is assigned a routine task. Clean old server backups for a client. Standard procedure. Delete the data. Format the drives. Hand them over. But before formatting the disks, Daniel saw something. Transfer records, international banking movements, and most importantly, the names of the senders and recipients. Under normal circumstances, Daniel would have ignored it, done his job, wiped the drives, forgotten everything. But one name caught his attention. Senator William Hawthorne. The name sounded familiar to Daniel, because 6 months earlier, he had seen the same name on a different server for a different client. At the time, he hadn't understood its significance. But now, seeing the same name on 2 separate servers, this couldn't be a coincidence. Daniel made a decision. Before deleting the data, he made a copy, and he kept it. For 3 years, Daniel did the same thing with every new assignment. He checked transfer records, looked for familiar names, and saved what he found onto the USB drive. From 2019 to 2022, he collected a total of 847 pages of documents, bank transfer records, shell company documents, offshore account opening forms, email correspondence. And in August 2022, Daniel came face to face with a reality he could no longer carry alone, as he was holding a bomb. And it was time to detonate it. But who could he give it to? The FBI, the media, Congress. Daniel trusted none of them because the names in the documents were everywhere. Federal agencies, media organizations, congressional committees, connections everywhere. So Daniel chose a different path. He began leaking the documents in small pieces to different sources. A few pages to an investigative journalist, a handful of documents to a think tank, a few emails to an academic. And the strategy worked, because no one could see the full picture until one piece connected to another. So what exactly did these documents show? The first layer is simple: offshore accounts, shell companies registered in Panama, bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, financial trusts in Cyprus. That part isn't shocking. Offshore accounts aren't illegal. Wealthy people use them for tax optimization. Problematic, but legal. But when you move to the second layer, things start to get strange. Because the owners of these accounts are American politicians, 7 members of Congress, 2 senators, 1 former Deputy Secretary of Defense, and all of the accounts share one thing in common. They were opened between 2018 and 2020, election years. But the strangest part appears in the third layer, because the people transferring money into these accounts are members of the opposing party. A Republican business figure sending money to a Democratic senator's offshore account. A Democratic lobbying firm transferring funds to a Republican congressman's account. And the amounts are not small. On average, between $2 million and $5 million, some reaching as high as $18 million. Now stop and think. Why would a politician send millions of dollars to their rival's offshore account? Among Daniel's documents is an email chain dated March 2019. Sender, an assistant to a Washington lobbyist. Recipient, a law firm in Panama. Subject line, Q2 distribution schedule. Attached is an Excel file. File name, reconciliation March 2019.xlsx. When the file is opened, there's a list, names, amounts, account numbers, and the most important column, party designation. The list shows this: money going to Democrats comes from Republican sources. Money going to Republicans comes from Democratic sources. But why? Another email provides a clearer answer. Its subject line is explicit. Neutralization Protocol, Phase 2. Neutralization Protocol. Phase 2. The language is technical, but the summary is simple. By transferring specific amounts of money to selected individuals from both parties, neutrality is ensured during critical votes. In other words, silence is being purchased. So how did this system work? According to the documents, it was a 3-stage process. Stage 1, target identification. A think tank identifies critical upcoming legislative votes, defense budgets, tax reforms, regulatory changes. For each vote, swing votes are analyzed, which politicians are undecided, which districts are under pressure. Stage 2, financial structuring. For each target, an offshore account is opened, not in the target's own name, but in the name of a family member or trusted associate. The accounts are layered across multiple jurisdictions, from Panama to Cyprus, Cyprus to Dubai, Dubai to Switzerland. Stage 3. Transfer and control timing is critical, just before or just after elections, a few weeks before major legislative votes. And most importantly, transfers are never direct. They pass through a chain of intermediary companies. Each transfer further obscures the trail. The documents show that this system was active for at least 5 years, from 2017 to 2022. Total transferred amount, $340 million. And this is where the real question emerges: who is funding this money? Because $340 million is not something a few wealthy donors can casually provide. This is a corporate operation, and Daniel's documents reveal the source of the funding. Defense contractors, pharmaceutical companies, technology giants, energy firms. Each wants changes to specific laws. And to pass those changes, politicians from both parties need to be neutralized. One example, in 2019 there was a vote on a defense budget that included the purchase of a specific weapons system. The company producing that system wanted the bill to pass. But there was a problem. There was opposition within both parties, for different reasons, But with the same result, the vote was at risk. The documents show that 3 months before the vote, $22 million in transfers were made. Targets: 4 Democratic members of Congress, 3 Republican senators. On the day of the vote, all 7 supported the bill. The law passed, awarding the weapons manufacturer a $1.2 billion contract, $22 million invested, $1.2 billion returned. The system worked. As Daniel continued collecting documents, he realized something. He wasn't just building a data archive anymore. He was building a case file. But who could use such a case? Federal prosecutors? There were federal-level connections in the documents, coordinators in the DOJ, information channels within the FBI. Too risky. The media. Daniel knew major media organizations were also part of the system. Some received special access from these politicians. Others benefited from similar funding networks. Congress? The documents implicated members of Congress themselves. Expecting them to investigate themselves was unrealistic. Daniel found a solution: decentralized exposure. He broke the documents into small pieces and gave each piece to a different party. A few pages to an independent journalist, a few emails to an academic researcher, a handful of transfer records to an activist group. None of them could create a major story on their own. But over time, the pieces began to connect. February 2023, an investigative journalism platform publishes an article titled "American Politicians with Companies Registered in Panama." April 2023. A think tank releases a report called "Anomalous Voting Patterns in Defense Budget Votes." June 2023. A nonprofit publishes an investigation titled "Corporate Funds Flowing into Offshore Accounts." Each looked like a separate story. But when a data journalist connected them, the pattern became clear. The same names, the same dates, the same shell companies. And in July 2023, all the pieces came together. A ProPublica reporter contacted Daniel. The reporter had connected the dots, but one thing was missing: the full source data. Until that moment, Daniel had never given anyone the entire USB drive. But now he faced a decision. The reporter gave Daniel a guarantee. "We will verify everything before publishing. Every document will be independently confirmed, and we will protect you." Daniel handed over the USB drive. For 2 months, the ProPublica team examined the documents. They verified bank records, investigated shell companies, traced the transfers, and in September 2023, they published. Headline: "The Neutralization Files, How Corporations Bought Silence from Both Parties." The article revealed everything Daniel had collected over 3 years: names, amounts, dates, transfer records, emails. Within 48 hours of publication, 3 congressional committees launched investigations. The FBI opened a federal probe. The SEC began investigating the shell companies. The first reaction was denial. The politicians named in the documents claimed the records were fake. They said the shell companies had nothing to do with them. They insisted they had never seen the transfers. But the documents were detailed. There were signatures, email headers, bank confirmation codes. The second reaction was attack. "This is Russian disinformation. This is a deep state operation. This is a political assassination." But Daniel's documents were independently verified. A Swiss bank confirmed some of the transfers. A Panamanian law firm validated shell company registrations. The third reaction was silence. Some politicians named made no statements at all. They avoided the media, skipped meetings, and, notably, were sick during upcoming votes. But the most interesting reaction came from an unexpected place. A Republican senator, whose name appeared in the scandal, held a press conference and said, "Yes, there is an offshore account opened in my name." No, I did not open it. Yes, money was transferred into it. No, I did not ask for it. And now I will tell you this. This system is far bigger than me. The senator did one more thing. He voluntarily handed over his bank records to the FBI. That was a breaking point. Because this was no longer just an external allegation. Someone from inside was confirming it. After handing over the entire USB drive, Daniel did one thing. He disappeared. No one knows where he is, not even ProPublica. The FBI needs his testimony, but they can't find him. Some believe he fled abroad. Some say he's under protection. Others whisper darker scenarios. But Daniel's final email to the ProPublica editor said this: I gave you the documents. My role is over. Now it's your job. But I can't stay here, because this system is deeper than you know, and I've seen too much. After that email, Daniel was never heard from again. The FBI is now searching for Daniel as both a witness and a potential victim, because among the documents was one more detail, a threatening email addressed to Daniel himself. The email was dated June 2022. The sender was anonymous. The message was short. We know what you've been collecting. We know where you work. Stop now, or the consequences will be permanent. After receiving that email, Daniel accelerated his collection efforts. He began leaking documents more aggressively, as if he knew his time was running out. And now, he's gone. This is not just a financial scandal. This is the story of what happens when one man dares to stand against the system. The offshore account files scandal is still unfolding. Federal investigations continue. Congressional hearings are being planned. Some names have resigned. Others remain in office. But the system Daniel exposed is now a known reality. Money doesn't just go to campaign funds. It doesn't just go to lobbyists. It doesn't just go to super PACs. Money goes directly into politicians' pockets, through offshore accounts, through shell companies, and in exchange, silence is bought. This system is not bipartisan. There are no two sides, because both sides are part of the same system. Democrats accuse, Republicans accuse, but the documents show that both take. Daniel Fischer may have understood this. Perhaps that's why he chose to disappear. Because when you stand against a system, everyone who is part of that system becomes your enemy. 847 pages of documents, $340 million in transfers, 16 names, and one missing man. This story doesn't end here, because the documents Daniel provided were only a fragment. In a final broadcast, the ProPublica editor said, Daniel told us, I want you to publish these documents. But there's something else you should know. This is not the whole story. These are only the records I could find. The real system is much bigger. Now the question is, how big is the real system? And the only person who knows the answer cannot be found. Thank you for watching. If this analysis helped you, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's free and far more helpful than you think. Watch the next video on screen. See you in the next one.